Hey, welcome back to the BVB podcast. My name's Jacob, joined as always by Carver. How's it going, man? How are you doing besides the hecticness of today? How's life in general?
Doing all right. Yeah, I feel like I'm a bit of a mess right now. I just got home from training a few minutes ago. Mixed feelings on the game. Of course, we were able to get the 3 points in the end, but another very stale, uninspiring performance against a team that could have easily put the game to bed by 30 minutes in. So, a lot to talk about here. How are you?
I'm tired, but I'm also about to go on vacation for like 12 days. So also why we want to
Cheers.
get a quick episode out before I take off, head out of the country. And yeah, I'm heading to Australia, so I'm gonna be unavailable. I don't know if I'm going to be able to watch the next couple matches. I'm going to try, but I don't really know what's going to happen. Um, so yeah, I want to get a quick episode in. Yeah, just tired. A lot of work's been crazy, and I'm excited to have a little break and a little getaway,
Yeah.
and some Dortmund drama to send us off too. Started this match and we go down 2-0, and I'm just like, oh no. And I started like, my first thought was I missed the last episode, which was a horrible defeat. And when I was like, maybe I'll just miss the next episode too. Or I was like, maybe this is a good. I'll just go off to Australia. Don't even talk about Dortmund for a good long time. So I do apologize for missing the last episode. Shout out to Jake from 50 Plus Donor, who he kind of subbed in for me since I was gone, but that wasn't the plan. He was going to be on anyways, but it's always nice having him on. And it was good to listen as just a listener to that one. So awesome of him to join as always. And yeah, I mean, I know we got a couple people tuned into the live stream. If you're listening to this, maybe listening to the podcast on Tuesday morning before our UCL Celtic match, which we will get into towards the end. But if you are on the live stream, make sure you send a little note. Let us know where you're watching from, so we can give you a shout out and let us know any thoughts as we're going through this Bochum match. But that, as you said, yeah, we got the 3 points, got the win, scored 4 goals. Like all that sounds great. The match, not so much. But before, well, I guess I do want to get into lineups. We had some changes there, but quick thought, Carver, I mean, you already gave it, but like, is this, does this give you the comeback? Are you like hopeful because of the comeback, or is that promising? Or does how we started this match and how it went overall, like, does that, I guess, how's your taste on the season looking ahead with this result?
Well, it's a win, but it wasn't convincing whatsoever. And I remain that way even after a very resilient and triumphant comeback that we were able to complete, going down 2 goals early at home in a game where we already needed to see an emphasis on needed to see a response from Borussia Dortmund. And the fact that it was against a winless Bochum, a albeit smaller, but still local derby here, against a team that is winless in the league, has struggled to, break into really even the top 10 since they've been in this top division for a while now. Somehow we continue to struggle against them. And I mentioned that last week too. I mean, Stuttgart and Bochum are both teams that we, again, are just really struggling to put on any sort of really convincing performance against. And in the case against Stuttgart, really make our way into the game whatsoever for these past several meetings now. Yeah. I mean, this has been a month now straight, 7 games. I think we're into the season, 7 competitive games, and still this is very concerning looking in terms of just our style of play and performance. I mean, this is a system that does not seem really sustainable in terms of personnel and just tactically too. It's very risky. Shaheen mentioned in, I think it was the post game, maybe, I don't think it was the press conference before Champions League. I think it was just shortly after the Bochum game, saying there will be still times that he's going to be doing not only a back three, but a fixed back three, because it can mold and change at times, but he's still wanting to stick with that. So that still concerns me, given the experimenting, if you want to call it that, has not gone well whatsoever. And you can't even really use that as an excuse, because teams like Stuttgart, like I mentioned last week, have lost plenty of players. Teams like Bayern are under a new coach, under Vincent Company, and albeit they do not, look at the style that, they can be, and that, extremely dominant, Bayern still are getting plenty of results. They're still scoring plenty of goals. Hey, Alex, thanks for tuning in here. Either way, these are just, again, another performance, again, that is looking very, very concerning despite the result.
Yeah. Shout out to Alex from OKC joining us in the chat. Um, so looking back kind of at just the season, the start of the season so far, I think up until the Stuttgart match, because since I was gone last week, hit on not that match specifically, but like these matches so far. I think I like going in the Stuttgart match, like I was feeling pretty good. I know
You got him down for a
the Bremen
3-1 win.
match that was the Bremen match was 0-0 draw, kind of boring. But I I was still hopeful because like we were getting results, right? Like, but I think more my hope came from, or what kind of clouded or blinded me from like the good results was like stand-up performances. Like twice, Jamie bynoe-gittens subbed on and won the game for us basically,
Yeah.
and that kind of covered up where uh, like up until those moments, the matches weren't that great. But I still had this feeling of like optimism and like, oh, things are going well. It's a decent start with Shaheen. And then I think Stuttgart, I was listening to the Gig Impressum podcast. Shout out to those guys. And they were like, yeah, it's been a pretty lackluster Dortmund so far. And now they face a team that's really well drilled, really well coached. They just faced a really good high caliber team and they're kind of mid. And when I heard that, I was like, dang it, you're kind of right. Because our performances have been pretty mid. And it's been these like individual moments that have shined, and it almost like blinded me to the poor performances up until those moments. And the hype got me, and then we were humbled against Stuttgart, and then this match too. Yeah, we were able to come back and win. I think that is a very positive sign, but there's a lot of cracks there, right? There's a lot of things we need to figure out. The only like one thing I'll give is like it is still so early with Shaheen.
Yeah.
And we've had so much change within the team. But I know this isn't where we want to be, and I think it's more of a kind of realization, like new coach, bunch of new players in the team. It might take some time, and there might be some really rough moments like that Stuttgart match. And I don't know. I think we had high hopes at the before the season kicked off, and now I'm like maybe those are trickling down a little bit. Like I still think we should have to finish top four, but maybe these are conversations for more down the season. I mean, do you have anything to add to that, or you want to get in the lineup?
It's just the basics that I'm really concerned with here. It's more than more like the intricacies and the little nitty gritty parts of the tactics that you can, dive into. It's really just the basics. Because you look at this game against Bochum. I don't want to jump too far ahead. I just want to mention this one part that like there were times where it took literally 3 and 4 touches for them to get from one third to another in the course of the field, right? A literally just like a 1-2, something you would see in high school, completely broke open our defense. Our back line was utterly exposed time and time again by the basics. And, I'm starting to feel a bit overwhelmed with these individual errors that I think can start to be pointed back to coaching decisions and just the way that the style of play. And there are, of course, boneheaded mistakes that some of these players are making, but there are plays that are leading up to these errors as well. And I think that can also come back to coaching. And you look at those, you look at how easy it is for teams to play through us at times. And it's not just higher quality teams either. I mean, Stuttgart, of course, ran us rampant, but you saw just at the weekend against Bochum too. I mean, even Club Brugge, we won 3-0, but that team was, again, dominating our midfield, running us over, playing plenty of balls in behind. Very simple stuff that was able to completely just break Dortmund down. So those parts, again, make me a little bit more worried here. But yeah, let's get into the lineup here if you have it ready.
Yeah, so Kobel in goal, obviously. Then we had Kuto getting his first start at right back. We had Anton and Schlotterbeck, our two center backs. Rierson getting the nod for out left, which is kind of something I speculated and I honestly wanted to see. Like if
Same.
from what I saw with Kuto in preseason, I thought it was kind of strange that we hadn't seen him in the lineup so far. So I'm glad that he got a chance. And then, I mean, it is a little interesting, I guess, like seeing Rierson over Pinzabayini, even though that is what I've wanted. It's just, yeah, I don't know. It's still kind of interesting overall.
Yeah.
Two pivots, Chan and Pascal Gross. Adeyemi, Brandt, and Gittens getting the start, and then Girassi up top.
Yeah, I called for this last week too, of like put Rierson on the left if you're really not trusting Benzabaini, but we need to have two fullbacks in this side. Kuto, I think, was deserving of a start as well. And this could just that should have brought more stability to our back line, but it simply wasn't the case. And really on both sides of the ball, there are plenty of issues to, go down the line on with this team. I mean, for being 7 competitive games into the season, like you mentioned, yes, it is still early days, but it has become far too big of an issue and far too of a familiar issue for this team to not get going for 30, 40, 50, sometimes even 65 plus minutes into the game for us to find any sort of rhythm, any sort of structure, or any sort of decent phase of possession at all of the ball. I mean, the team struggles to, barring that half hour against Heidenheim, that is definitely an isolated incident there. And I thought there was progress there. But outside of that, there has been a lot of regression in terms of the performances before and after that, in terms of just, progressing up the field. You could argue it's starting to look a little bit better at times than under Terzic, because there was plenty of problems with him in terms of buildup, but just on both sides of the ball too. I mean, there's just a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of hesitation, and that breeds errors. That breeds mistakes from these players, especially too when, again, not so much this game, but in others, players are out of their preferred position. Whether they're on the wrong side of the field, they're on like a different line. Center halves playing at full as a fullback. You name it. Either way, it breeds those errors. So it's nothing that you can point to and say like, this is just an isolated incident, or this is something that's primarily or just strictly on the players. Of course, there are moments like that you can point to, but collectively, I think when you start to see these reoccurring over and over and over, especially with the factors that I already mentioned, I think it starts to come a little bit back towards that coaching staff. And again, just like, and I mentioned it against Stuttgart too, like the lack of mentality, the lack of desire, the bite to get to these first and second balls. Shaheen mentioned that too in the post-game press conference, saying that like Dortmund do need to do much, much better at winning that second ball. And you're seeing that a lot of times too. Again, these are just very, very simple stuff. This is not stuff that I don't think should be needing too much reiteration at that sort of level, especially against relegation level teams.
Yeah, so we go down early. First goal in the 16th minute, second goal in the 21st minute. As you're talking about mentality, like I feel like we've just seen this before with Dortmund. Like we come off a really poor result. We're at home. That should be enough motivation, right? Like being at home, being at the best stadium in Europe with the yellow wall behind you. And then how many times have we seen this where it's just like terrible start? Like how can these guys just not get up for it? And if we hadn't made so many like wholesale changes, like with all the new players being brought in, or maybe it is like, is it still on some of these players who have been there for a while? Like, is there this culture, like breakdown in culture, or I don't know, is it like, it's hard to say, is it the coach not being able to get them up? Cause we have a new coach too. Right. But like, is it because it's a coach running on, I'm a Dortmund player, I'm running on vibes, or do we need someone else in there to really like kick these guys' asses and get them into gear? Because it is crazy to like come off such a poor result and then come out at home and start so poorly too.
Yeah. And if this were any sort of higher opposition, they would have put this game to bed. I mentioned the 1-2 already that completely got through our defense. That left a one-on-one with Kobel, and that they, you argue their attacker should have done better there to actually finish off that chance. And then it's 3-0 up in the first 30 minutes. And I think that is it's just a mountain to climb for Dortmund to come back on. Has that happened in the past? I think actually that has. If we come back from like a 3-0 deficit at home, it might have been it might have been like it's like Darmstadt or something like that, some relegated side or close to it. But either way, it's just such an unnecessary position to put yourself in so early on. Again, when already the response should have been so much further back, right? Like before the opening whistle, before the game, the players should have been locking in. They should have been, had a better understanding of what they were supposed to do on both sides of the ball and in terms of their positioning. But again, you just have all this uncertainty and hesitancy. And then you find yourself in a game like this where you're 2 goals down, arguably should have been even more. And again, it's the same thing against Stuttgart too. I mean, even though they battered us with 5 goals, it could have been 5 and 6 in that first half hour again. So saying that we need a response going forward is not enough, especially when you have, again, another home game tomorrow. It's a bit of a blessing that Shaheen has a chance to turn this around pretty quickly. Of course, not in the league, but hopefully to get a proper response, because it should have already happened a few days ago, but we were again left waiting for that.
Hey, shout out to Chaz, who just joined us in the chat too, saying losing the balls, losing the second ball drives me insane. And I'll put a question in the chat too as we kind of just transition a little bit in this match. First half, obviously horrible. Second half, we're able to come back and make the comeback. So how is that? How are people? I kind of already asked Carver this question, but how's it making you feel? Like, just does the second half give you enough hope? Tell you that something's there, or are we just kind of panic mode? Because even though we already said it, we got the win, we scored 4 goals, but I'm still like, I don't know, man. It seems pretty shaky, pretty scary. So if you're in the chat, please let us know. But yeah, we are able to get the goal from Girassi just before the half, and then I'm sure going into the locker room, they got yelled at. Maybe tactics switch up a little bit to try to turn things around, but we are able to come back in the second half. And I just want to get your takes too, Carver, on Girassi in this performance. This is kind of, I mean, he went 90 minutes, 9.3 rating. He's got the 2 goals. Obviously, he got the PK, which led to another goal. What are the looking for some positivity here? What are kind of like positive signs from seeing Girassi? Obviously, the goals and everything, but how can you see him helping in this team, shifting in just some just give us some positive. I don't know what I want to say except like, can you talk about Girasi's performance a little bit, and does that give any hope for where we can go?
Well, it attests to his maturity, I think, first and foremost. We were not able to get back into this game for, in my opinion, any sort of tactical switch up, anything like that, or in terms of just like positionally finding different ways to go and play through Bochum, but rather Girassi just muscling his way back into the game for Borussia Dortmund. I mean, the first one came from a header. Of course, he did go on to score another one as well. Should have gotten a hat trick this game, just got a little unlucky. But either way, just like the maturity he has, again, it shows that just the quality that he is of a striker and making that instant impact, like Chaz here mentioned. But you shouldn't have to rely on these individual moments and of brilliance from these players, but rather the collective response should have been there from the jump already to begin with. I mean, like you mentioned before, the handful of first games, we got rescued by Gittens. The 0-0 against Bremen, no one really showed up for that. But same thing with Girassi. I mean, even in the Brugge game too. I mean, Gittens and Girassi rescued us in that game. And then from this one too, you have Girassi rescuing us again from Bochum. And whenever you go up against higher oppositions or higher quality oppositions that are able to maybe mark Girassi a bit better, I mean, hell, more than half of this game, Felix Passlack looked like the best fucking right back in the world. I mean, goddamn, he completely shut down JG. I mean, even whenever he got on the ball, he drove forward a bunch. Passlack looked like $1 million out there. So the fact that, JG is already kind of getting found out at times by a fullback of that kind of quality, you need to be having a better mindset and just game plan and executing that game plan with some certainty, with some conviction, with some clarity, which I hear the word clarity a lot from Shaheen, saying like we have these clear ideas in mind when it comes to the second half or just that last 30 minutes of play in the game, and Dortmund are able to wake up a bit, but that needs to be sooner. It needs to be from the first whistle and not 40, 50, 65 minutes into the game, because a team is going to put you to bed time and time again. And we've seen it twice in a row now from teams that aren't even really that higher quality. So yeah, going back to Girassi, another great performance. He's going to be a massive help this whole season, especially in moments like these, whenever we're not able to figure our shit out, and he's just going to have to muscle his way back into games for the team. But I wanted to mention too, like, we need to see more from Brandt. I mean, the fact that Royce is gone now, the fact, Reyna's been out and we don't know when his return is going to be. Hopefully it's going to be sooner rather than later, maybe before the international break. Our number 10, our best attacking midfielder, one of our faces of the club, has to do better. We need to see more from him. Positionally, he's not been there. I'm not seeing enough runs from him. I'm not seeing enough initiative for him to just simply get on the ball and to make things happen, because he has the quality to do that. All the things that make Brandt. I mean, hell, he's changed his game up totally in terms of just like his tenacity, his aggression. You've seen this all slowly start to change and flip on its head these past few years. But so far this season, he has not gone up and running. He's gotten a few assists, sure. But again, like most things with this team, the numbers on paper do not reflect the performances that this team has been putting on. And that's going to catch up to you sooner rather than later. So, we need to see more from Brandt. Chan, I'm saying that every game, and we need to see more from him. This game was much better from him. He was able to come on and bring all the things that I already mentioned already, the tenacity. He took the game to Bochum. He brought in a lot of stability for our defense and just midfield in general. So Bochum were not so easily able to run through our team. So shout out to him for that better performance, much better. But just in general, I need to see more from our number 10. I mean, Brandt needs to pick up his slack.
Yeah, shout out Chaz again, said he needs to shoot the ball. How many times did we see that last year? Like a lot of Champions League matches where you kind of out of nowhere, Brandt just has a shot out wide and is able to get it in. Like he can be so good. I think a lot of what we're missing is when we were playing that back three, that back five, where he was him and Sabitzer, right? We talked about how they're just not really in the positions to get the ball or take control of the game. And maybe it is like this switch of tactics, things are changing up and he's trying to figure out his role. I've also mentioned when we see that kind of front five almost where all these attacking players are rotating so much, I like it because it seems a bit unpredictable, but at the same time, maybe that's a cause for Brandt not being in the right positions at all the times, or not being able to just like be the guy in the middle to dictate everything. If sometime he's going out wide and Adeyemi is in the middle, like you're just seeing him float all over the place. I don't know if that's a cause for kind of these poor performances. I do think it's some of that is the lineup, like I said, where we've seen him a lot deeper and he's just not getting as many touches on the ball. So hopefully we can just get like a system locked in and he can just figure that position out, figure this new role out. Like it is, I'm encouraged by I think it's the first goal to Guirassy, Brandt whips it in, and he just puts it on his head. And I mean, that's on Guirassy for getting up and being that physical player. But I feel like that's what we wanted to see going back a couple of years. Remember this name, Modeste, when we talked about how many goals he scored at Cologne the year before and how many of those were headers. And then it's like, why aren't we just putting this on the dude's head? Like, why can't we just do that? So I'm encouraged by that. I'm glad we just put it on Guirassy's head and he's able to get the goal. And that was Brandt who got that ball in. But yeah, that we need Brandt boys kind of sad right now. And we need Brandt flying. One player, we touched on Couto a little bit before. I hope this means he's going to get another start. But just his performance, I think he went 82 minutes, 13 passes in the final third, 3 touches in the opponent's box. I think he had 3 chances created too. And then on the flip side, 11 recoveries. We've seen kind of his attacking prowess before, getting the assist for, I believe it was, I don't remember. Oh, Duranville in one of the earlier matches. But to have 11 recoveries, Chaz, not a Modeste callback. I'm sorry. But to have the 11 recoveries too, like I really like seeing that aspect of his game. And I hope we can continue to see more of him. I'm hoping that us not seeing so much of him so far is more just him kind of getting integrated. Obviously coming to a new league. He's still pretty young. I think he's only 22. And I just hope he can get better in the team because I think that's where we'll be able to see the best. And like you said, I do like Ryerson on the left. I like him on the right too. But if we're playing Couto, like, yeah, put Ryerson on the left if that's just where we are right now. Adeyemi had the 2 assists. And then, I don't
really
know.
Good
like
pass from Adeyemi there for that second Guirassy goal. I mean, again, Adeyemi did not have a great game. It's definitely in that first like 45 minutes, 55 minutes. You've seen much better from him in just terms of on the ball. But, he's able to make a much better decision than he usually does, keep his head up and play Guirassy right into space there where he's able to finish it off. So shout out to Adeyemi there for that assist there. I'm hoping he can, again, continue to build on that better decision-making process and just keeping his head up and getting the ball a little bit off his feet a little bit quicker and able to just set other people up because, like we said, I mean, players usually gravitate towards Guirassy and that leaves plenty of space for our wingers. So,
couple other shouts on players, just kind of giving a quick mention. Duranville, finally got to see him come on. And then Mecha getting a goal.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of, I mean, mistake by the goalkeeper. Just kind of dropped it in the net. I was also almost really mad on Metch's goal, top of the box. It was a good hit. It was at the keeper, and then he dropped it, obviously. But it looked like he had a clear shot, and then he just like cuts it back, and I literally was about to lose my mind. I was like, why not just take the shot? What are you doing? And then got the goal 2 seconds later. I was almost had a really bad "I hate you, Metcha" shout, and then
You say that anyway.
then he redeemed himself. But that was it was such a weird time too, where like we had the comeback, everything was so bad, right? And then we come back, and by the time Metcha scores, I'm like, what the F is even going on now? Like everyone's just scoring, whatever, who
Right.
cares? Like
Well, by
then I'm
that
like, I
time,
don't even know what to
too,
think about this match anymore.
Yeah, and that in the end, despite like all of the concerns and complaints and that are all extremely valid about this game, I mean, we were absolutely deserving for the win here, given that like once we started clawing our way back into the game, Bochum just kind of like laid down, which you can't really blame them given the circumstances that they were in. Again, winless, a team that are not high quality, and you're away at one of the biggest clubs in Europe to begin with, so it's obviously very, very, very tough to hold off an opposition like that all 90 minutes. So whenever the goals started flowing, they just kind of kept flowing. So it was, it became easier and easier for us to break down Bochum as this game went on. But again, it's not going to be that near that easy to even get into the game to first place against much higher quality oppositions here going forward.
Yeah. Before we get into Champions League and Celtic, if you are ready, my only like one other note was after the match, seeing Shaheen's face. I appreciate he looked kind of like one relieved, but also a little like nervous, panicked. I don't know. The look on his face was scared. Maybe he wasn't like he wasn't like running on the pitch or like super pumped up like, oh yeah, we got the win. Like he knows that it was a terrible performance and they were able to scrape by, and that gives me hope that maybe he's feeling the pressure already, or he at least acknowledges like that was not a good performance and we need to turn things around, or we need to turn it up another gear. I don't know, like I just appreciated that. It already seemed like literally final whistle, he looked panicked, and I was like, good. I want you to be nervous. I want you to understand right now. Like it didn't feel like coaches can obviously come back and say something in the presser and be like, oh, it wasn't our best performance, whatever. Like, but like it's kind of a coach thing too. They kind of have some notes that they're going to hit. Right. So to see him physically like feel that, I was like, so maybe it's a weird thing to notice, but I was like, cool. Like I want you to not be happy with that.
Yeah, he shouldn't be. And again, he's a bit more of a blunt coach, and so I think you're seeing that come through him at times. I am glad he was able to finally get Duranville some minutes. I mean, despite Mullen being on the bench, despite Mullen being ready to go, I would have made that exact same decision, to be honest with you. Duranville has more than earned that spot to, I mean, not in general, but just, of course, in this game. I think he deserved himself to get himself involved here. And hopefully we could see a bit more of him going forward. Again, it's a good problem to have. I found the quote here on the back three in the post game. Shaheen said, "I've often used the back three in Antalyaspor. A back three is always an option, and we tried to play a bit disguised. There will be games where we'll go back to a fixed back three. We have the squad for it." That part really stuck out to me. We have
I
the
don't know
squad.
about that.
But today I didn't feel like we needed that. So this quote kind of made me roll my eyes a bit, just because I thought we saw, those days behind us, at least until Shaheen is able to get his ideas across a bit more, whatever those ideas may be in terms of the back three. Turns out this is just a game where he kind of didn't want to run that and wants to do it again soon. So hopefully, if that is the actual truth there, he is able to figure his shit out a bit more, because so far that system is really just set up to fail against some pretty low quality oppositions.
I don't like that. We don't have the squad for it. You got three
Right.
center backs. We don't have the squad to play three at the back. That's crazy. And then I also don't like. I just want to know what, like, I don't want like a system for this and a system for that. Like if it changes and flows throughout the game, that's fine. But like I don't know. I don't want to be a team that kind of dictates like, oh, we're going to play this way because we're playing this team. Like I want us to have our style and our identity, and not this game didn't call for it. So, or I don't like that. I just want to be more clear with what we are doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't have too much more else to say about this game. Sorry.
All right, let's get into Champions League. Back on Tuesday. So again, good morning if you're listening. And your nice little preview before the Champions League match on Tuesday. Thank you for joining us, to everyone who joined us on the live show on Monday night. Yeah, coming up against Celtic, we are back at home. Celtic, man, I'm kind of worried because they've been flying. I know they're in the Scottish Premier League,
Premiership.
and their first Champions League match against Slovan Bratislava. So I'm not going to say it was a huge matchup, but they've won all their games pretty significantly. 3-0 against Rangers, uh, 2-0 against Hearts, 5-1 in that Champions League match. Then they won 5-2 and 6-0. Like they have just been scoring a lot. They've been
Yeah,
flying.
yeah. I saw on their squad that Arne Engels from Augsburg last year made the move over to Celtic, and he's picked up a handful of goal contributions this season already. I thought that was pretty interesting. I had no idea where he had went. I am a little disappointed for any American fans out there. I was really looking forward to seeing CCV, Cameron Carter Vickers, play for Celtic in this game. However, I don't have the report in front of me. I apologize. But I did see earlier today that he will be unavailable due to injury. As much as I love him and I think he deserves a bit more respect in terms of the U.S. national team, he is pretty consistently not fit. So hopefully he can really start to I don't want to turn this into like the Celtic or the US men's national team podcast or anything, but hopefully he can get some more minutes under him, and more than anything else, just some good healthy fitness so he can be ready for the 2026 World Cup, because I do want to see him there at minimum. But from a Dortmund perspective, they are losing their best center half and one of the best center halves in the Scottish Premiership, so that is a big plus for us. I'm not going to pretend like I know too much tactically about their squad, but if you go down the line, there's a lot of recognizable faces there. Of course, you have Casper Schmeichel as their keeper. So, like you said, this is not a team to be underestimated. We should not be looking forward, past them by any means. Shaheen has another opportunity at home to build some momentum going into the next league game here, and hopefully build some confidence and just convince us, because I don't want to speak for every listener, I don't want to speak for every Dortmund supporter, but I think the vast majority of them right now are not convinced in the way that we are playing, and that needs to change soon, because we are only 7 games into the season, but at the same time we should be at a point where Shaheen should be starting to figure some shit out, given he had an entire preseason at his disposal. And really, on top of that too, we don't have much of any injuries at the moment. I mean, of course, Rain is still like questionable, but pretty much everyone has been good to go this season. So, it's not like in terms of being in an injury crisis or anything like that. The resources that are there, the fixtures are there against some pretty favorable oppositions. Now we need to start seeing not only results, but convincing performances from this team.
Yeah, shout out to Alan in the chat who said Scottish Premiership. It's kind of a weak league. I just got a feeling
Oh, yeah.
BVB will have enough to go 2-1, I think. And yes, it is a lower league compared to Bundesliga, I would like to think. But I think
Definitely.
there is something in. I was just looking back through their record because I pulled it up, or their previous matches, and it's green for days. They have not lost since March 3rd.
That makes
And
sense.
one of the wins in here was 4-1 against Chelsea in a summer friendly. So I understand that's off season or preseason, and it's a friendly match. But man, it is just, there is something in the mentality of a team that never loses. Like it's kind of like Leverkusen, right? They finally lost this year. And I'm not saying, like, I still think we should have the quality. We should have the quality to beat them, undoubtedly. But there is something in the mentality of a team that just wins and wins and wins and wins. And even though they lost, like I said, March 3rd, the match before that, they won 7-1. So like,
Mm-hmm.
this is just a dominant team. They're dominant in their league. And when we talk about Dortmund, and it's kind of a team with maybe a frail mentality, might be a little harsh, but like we've been talking
Mm-hmm.
about it, right? Like we talk about it so much. We see these ups and downs, and that's the only, like, I don't know, it could be scary. And I will also compare this to when we played Rangers a couple years back I think it was the Europa League knockout round, right? When we bumped out of Champions League, had a chance to continue in Europa League, and we're like, cool, we missed out on Champions League, we'll just win the Europa League, and then we get rocked by Rangers. And this is a team, looking back, who has dominated Rangers the last year. So there is that. Like, yeah, think what you will about the Scottish Premiership. I think there is something in just coming up against a team with the mentality like this. So I think that can be tough. If we don't start strong, it is going to be a very difficult match for us. still going to predict that we win. I'm still going to predict that we
Right.
win 2-0. I'll just jump right into that. But I think it has the potential to be a tough match.
Yeah. And outside of mentality, again, you need that bite. You need that desire to actually, go for these first and second balls, like Shaheen has mentioned, and take the game to an opposition, not wait to hopefully maybe get into it now or in. You need to be in it from the very jump, and just getting these basics right, the fundamentals, the basics of just the structure of your back lines, and forming these passing triangles, knowing where to be, and then the results and just the rest of the things, they'll flow, they'll come with it. But you have to nail this stuff first.
I mean, anything else on Celtic? I was just going to hit matches Tuesday, could be today if you're listening on the podcast.
Yeah.
3 p.m. Eastern time kickoff, and then on the weekend coming up on away at Union Berlin. Good to see our friend and not friend. I just wish he was still a BVB player, but Tom Rota.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, you got anything else before we wrap up?
Make sure to let Jake know. Have a great time in Australia.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's been nice knowing you guys. I am going to Australia.
So we'll figure out something in terms of episodes here while he's gone. I'll try to rack my brain here of if I want to do something or try to get some people on with me.
Yeah, I was just going to say, DM Carver, ask him when the episodes are coming out. Make sure you get connected in our Discord if you're not there already. I think the few people maybe in our live show right now, I gave a quick last minute, hey, by the way, we're going live. And that was in our Discord. And if you just don't like social media, because it's a stupid place sometimes, you can join us in our Discord or follow us on social, whatever you want. All the links to everything is in the description of this episode. And I'll be back in a while. Carver will maybe be back soon. We'll see you guys later.